Well, thanks for joining me, Marcus. It's really good to talk with you. We're here to talk with Marcus about Geoscience Australia's Economic Fairways Mapper tool. Marcus, please just tell us a little bit about yourself and what you do at GA.
Oh, hi, Anthony. It's good to hear from you. I'm the current acting activity lead for integration and prospectivity within the Mineral Systems branch. So I work on a range of different projects that are ultimately looking at different aspects of the question of prospectivity to try and help reduce risk and narrow down the search space for minerals exploration across Australia.
Yeah, fantastic. So I guess that's where the Economic Fairways Mapper tool comes in then.
Yeah, that's right. So, and we're very used to looking at, I guess, more traditional approaches to looking at the technical potential for finding resources. But in many ways, that's half the problem. If you find something, you do hope that you can extract it economically. And the Economic Fairways Mapper is a tool that we have developed in collaboration with Monash University to answer those sorts of questions.
Yeah, so it gives you a much broader kind of a more holistic picture of what's actually economic other than where the minerals might be. Yeah, so I'm really keen to see a little bit of a demo.
No worries. So the Economic Fairways Mapper can be found at the Geoscience Australia portal. So that's portal.ga.gov.au. When you land on the splash page, there's a ribbon up the top, and it's sort of divided on the left in terms of data and on the right in terms of tools. So the Economic Fairways Mapper is one of the tools available in our portal. I'll just run through a quick demonstration of what it's capable of. There's a range of different commodities that are available to look at. I'll just do a copper gold, and we'll look across South Australia. It allows you to define the depth at which a particular deposit occurs. At these sorts of scales, we usually use the Phanerozoic or Seabase model. You can play with the tonnage of the ore body. If you have the details available, you can look at the length, the width, depth, and dip. You can play around with the grades of the metals of the ore body, including some of the critical commodities. You can play around with the prices, including things like renewable energy or resource drill out. And then there are a range of different metrics that can be returned. The most common is the net present value. That's what we're looking at here. But we can also bring up things like annual employment, the tax revenue, royalties, and a range of other options depending on what you're interested in. For the net present value, we typically display it in this red-blue color stretch, where the blue areas are showing us the areas that are a little bit unlikely to be economic, and the red areas are the places where such a deposit would be economic. There are a couple sort of high-level trends that you see in these sorts of images. So the areas of outcrop typically stand out in bright red or more economic terms, and there's a big step change as you move undercover and the costs increase rapidly. Also, if you look carefully, you can see these sorts of buffered features that are occurring around there. That's the distances to the electrical transmission lines. If you're close enough to the existing infrastructure, you can build new power lines to connect into that. But once you reach a certain distance, then you really have to start looking at supplying your own power, and there's another big step change there.
Economics will change with that. So
exactly.
That's net present day value, given the parameters you put in, so the copper price, the gold price, and so on. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay. Yeah.
It looks at the costs of setting up the mine, and it looks at the lifetime of the mining operation, where you're spending capital and operational costs, and then the revenue you're making throughout the lifespan.
Fascinating, right? So there's all kinds of things that you could plug in there and modify the parameters to see what sort of size ore body, what sort of composition, what sort of like extra elements you could put in if you found credits of cobalt or something like this. How would that change the economics?
Yeah, it's really powerful for looking at, I suppose, different scenarios that you might want to test. I'd be interested to hear about the sorts of priorities that the GSSA has, and if there are particular systems you'd like me to sort of run through the model.
Yeah, sure. Great. That'd be great, Marcus. So perhaps it's probably most relevant at the moment to talk about our Delamerian region. It's a region
Hmm.
which the GSSA is working quite actively with the MinEx CRC, and so there's lots of kind of regional mapping and geochronology and structural interpretations at the moment leading up to a drilling program. And so it'll be fantastic to have a look at this analysis through that part of the world. So yeah, exactly
About
where
here.
you put it. Yep, something like that.
And what sort of mineral systems are you hoping to find in that area?
Well, I think the copper gold systems are quite a high priority, high potential. You've got things like Kanmantoo already existing in that area. So, potentially some sort of Kanmantoo like deposit or some sort of copper gold porphyry system, perhaps. So, yeah,
Yeah.
those
Trying
would be the
to
systems that people would be targeting, I would imagine.
track these as they dip under cover. I find when
Yeah,
I find when I
excellent.
run these sorts of models, it's good to start with a modest size deposit. Obviously, we all want to find the next big one,
Sure.
but I think it's interesting to look at
Yeah.
if you're going to find something reasonable, is that still economic?
Yep.
So I'll put in something relatively small here, maybe 1.7% copper, 1.8 grams per ton gold. We'll leave off the critical minerals for the moment.
Sure.
Let's see
And
what we can get.
so those gold prices you've got in there.
Yeah, so at the moment we've set it up using sort of long-term averages from 2019, before everything went a little bit wild this year. We've tried to keep everything as reasonable as possible to lower the technical burden on the users.
Sure.
So here's an example that we get for a modest copper gold deposit throughout the Delamerian. Actually, you can see the controls on the costs quite well here, particularly the cover model, where you see some of those big depot centers throughout the Murray-Darling Basin, and some of these really fine sort of spiderweb features, which is actually reflecting the transportation network throughout the region.
Yeah, right. So they'd be proximity roads or rail in that area.
Yeah, exactly. And the distances you have to travel to get it to port.
So
export to market.
what's the kind of difference in magnitude of this present day value? Say, for example, the outcrop, obviously it's a bright red.
Yeah.
But as you dip out into that the more buried region, what I can't quite make out that scale. So between $0 and $344 million, there's a big range.
Yeah.
So what are we looking at there?
That's right. So I just used our query point, and you can see that in the bright red where it's outcropping, we're looking at a net present value of about $235 million. Whereas if we look at one of these close to the road network areas where we're just getting that light blush, it's dropped down to about $41 million. So there's certainly a big challenge in stepping undercover. And this, I guess, this gives us the actual capability, perhaps for the first time, to look regionally at what that is, what that looks like, and how that compares to, say, moving somewhere that's shallower but a lot more distant to infrastructure. We can answer those sorts of questions.
So I guess it has that impact of both how we view infrastructure in relation to geology, but I guess also the other thing to put in here is that improving our understanding of the geology also influences how well we look at the prospectivity too. So yeah.
Oh,
fantastic.
Exactly. I think one of the things that's really become apparent through using this tool is the importance of understanding the depth of the potential targets that you're looking at from the outset, and understanding your uncertainty in that, because it really defines the economics of the project, and bringing forward those financial considerations to sit alongside more traditional mineral systems modeling is really important for prioritizing those questions, particularly prioritizing different opportunities that are available to hopefully maximize the impact of minerals exploration expenditure.
Certainly. Oh, that's absolutely fantastic. Thank you so much, Marcus, for showing us very briefly the portal. We obviously encourage people to jump on there and have an experiment and play around, and get in touch with Marcus if you have any questions about how the portal works, or we want to see any additions or modifications. So fantastic. Yeah. Thanks so much for your time, Marcus.
Thank you very much. And please, if you've got any feedback, we'd love to hear it.